You're listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. She is passionate, direct, and sometimes a little sarcastic, but always gives you what you need to succeed in business. Now, here's your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 48, Schedules, Unlocking the Key to Having It All with Katie Krimitsos. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to take consistent, massive, focused action in your business and life, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I am excited and looking forward to bringing you my guest, our guest, Katie Krimitsos. Katie is the founder of Biz Women Rock, a community and education provider for women entrepreneurs who want to grow a purposeful, productive, and profitable business. She is a business coach and growth strategist, a mastermind facilitator, and provides online and live education to help purpose-driven and action-taking women so that they can get the tools they need to fulfill their business dreams. Her podcast, Biz Women Rock, provides personal business interviews, pertinent topics, and actionable information that help her community thrive in their businesses. She is a lover of travel, animals. She has a pet parrot, Sammy, of course, the water, and amazingly in love with her daughter, Sedona, and her husband, Chris. When listening in on my conversation with Katie, you will discover the freeing power of schedules, how scheduling can help you obtain balance and happiness, the necessary evolution of your schedule, benefits of batching according to your energy levels, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Katie. Hello, Katie, and welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. How are you doing today?
Good, Amber. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so looking forward to chatting, and I think we have some exciting stuff to share with our listeners today.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So before we jump into today's topic, which I know you've got some great stuff, I want you to start off and give our listeners a little glimpse into your business and what is your structure and your support. Tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words and your business.
Yeah. So I have a company called Biz Women Rock. And although it started as a podcast 4 years ago, it now is an entire business for me. So what that means is that my job is as the leader, the facilitator, the provider of resources that help very ambitious women entrepreneurs grow their companies very purposefully, very productively, and very profitably. So that sometimes looks like I am a one-on-one coach and strategist. I provide masterminds. I do online courses, and I do live events as well. The structure that I have for that is that as of right now, it really is me at the helm. And then I do have an executive assistant who is phenomenal. I have a marketing strategist who helps out as well. And I have probably about another 2 or 3 folks that I use kind of on a as needed basis, like my web guy. My accountant is obviously on not an as needed basis. That is an all the time basis.
That's so funny you say that. I always say your CPA or accountant should be like business best friend.
Once a month, I meet with her. We have a strategy call every single month. So, and then like a graphic designer, all that sort of stuff. So just kind of as needed. But really, my executive assistant really is a solid portion of my business as well as my social media marketing strategist.
Okay, so we actually share the same audio editor for our podcast too.
Oh, yes, thank you. How can I forget him? Oh my goodness. Giant part of my, sorry, Danny. Giant part of my team is my podcast editor and producer, Danny Osment with Emerald City Productions, who's amazing.
He is. And no, I didn't think you forgot him, but I was just going to say, it's like, I find myself with several independent contractors like yourself, and Danny being one of them. I also have an executive assistant, but I have a question for you. Does your executive assistant help communicate and manage your independent contractors, or does everybody report up to you?
As of right now, the way it looks is that everyone reports to me. I am leaning towards and going towards the systemization of which will kind of put her as almost kind of the COO, if you will. But that's not in this moment, but I'm kind of gearing towards that.
Yeah. So you shared a little bit, but who are your ideal clients? I know you said women, you said ambitious women, and I happen to know because we've gotten to meet in person and I am following you and I'm very interactive with you and your brand. But share with our listeners who your ideal client is if they should be listening.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm actually pretty clear that my ideal client for every specific program or offering that I have is a little bit distinct. But overall, I would say the women who are attracted to the Biz Women Rock community and brand at large are women who are in business already, whether it's been 3 months or 3 decades. Their commonality is that they are hungry for more. And even somebody who's been in business for 3 decades, you would be amazed at how hungry they are as well. So they share the common trait of knowing that they don't know everything and understanding that this entrepreneur journey is exactly that. Like it's a journey. And so they're just constantly striving for more, and more doesn't always need to be bigger. It just needs to be the next evolution. They're constantly in evolution mode, constantly wanting to learn how they can do things a little bit better, how they can tweak, constantly looking at what they're doing, how they're showing up to their businesses and how they can do that better. So they come to me because they really love feeling that there are other women entrepreneurs out there who are doing that. Like there are others of us who have that same language and speak that same language. And so much of what I put out tends to be very like goal driven, like just very like moving, like we're always moving. We're never complacent. So that's who they are.
And that is exactly why I was attracted to you and your brand, because I am always looking to grow.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what season of business you're in, there's always something to learn, either from yourself or from the community at large, which you do really, really well at leveraging all of the knowledge and experience in your community as well. So yes, I absolutely love what you stand for and that you are that support. You are providing all of that amazing resources to us women entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you.
So that is amazing. That is where you're at today. But why did you choose the path of entrepreneurship? Like, what was it for you that you just woke up one day and you're like, I am going to be a business owner?
It was sort of accidentally. It's worth noting. So at the time of this recording, I'm 39 years old, and it's worth noting I grew up in a very blue collar family. I never really even heard the word entrepreneur until I was about 22, and then spent, my 20s really kind of like doing the corporate thing, kind of like getting my feet wet in corporate after I finished a master's degree, and just never felt comfortable there. I can see this now, but in the moment it was just like, I wanted freedom. Like freedom is a giant value of mine. And so I just never felt like I could really, I always kept thinking, if I just find the perfect job, like I'll be free and I'll feel fulfilled in all of these ways. And it just never happened. And then I've always had a passion for women, for lifting women up. I didn't know exactly what that was going to turn into, but I've always had a passion for that and kind of the woman's journey. And then that married perfectly with me ending up jumping into my husband's brand new business. He was my boyfriend at the time, and he had just started a company called the Tampa Bay Business Owners. And it was an entrepreneurs association. So it was really almost like a chamber of commerce for the entrepreneur. He had just started it. And here I was seeing like, wow, that is so awesome. And it just looks like a lot of fun. So while I was working my day job, sort of started helping him out. It's worth noting that I actually had joined because I had written a book that no longer really exists. But I knew like I need to be around other business owners who would know how to make a business model out of a book. Like that's what I kind of how I originally found him.
I had no idea about that.
So, yeah. Yeah. So as a matter of fact, if you ask me, I consider myself more of a writer than anything else, even though that book has long since been out of existence. But I feel like that's one of probably the most prominent gift of how I communicate. So I came across his company. He and I met, hit it off, of course. And just a month into us being together, I was like, well, let me help you out with this and let me help you out with that. And I just became like the girlfriend to go in there and be like, I was corporate trained at that point. So I was like, and he was a total startup. So I was like, well, where's your marketing collateral and where are your processes for what happens once a member joins? And I just kind of naturally did some of that stuff. And so that ended up turning into me very quickly, by the way, quitting my corporate job, not necessarily because I saw myself in his company, but because I have a very low tolerance for unhappiness and I was done with that. And I was like, well, okay. And for a half second, I thought maybe I would then build up the company to go sell that book. But then I realized really quickly that is a long-term game. And I was like, okay, you already have a working business model. How about we put both of our energies towards that? And so that's when I dove headfirst. Honestly, my entrepreneurial experience was totally like School of Hard Knocks. It was two sides of the same coin called I myself am having the entrepreneurial experience of growing this company from start to continuing to grow it over and over again. And B, who we were servicing were entrepreneurs. And so I had case study after literally thousands of businesses that I got to see very intimately and what they were doing. So it was a ton of information and education.
Okay, so it sounds like you got a little bitty piece of it and then you're like, I'm done with corporate. This is all me, all in.
Yeah.
Since then, I know a little bit of your story. So since then, you do not currently work with your husband. Is that correct? And you solely work in your business?
Yeah, we wanted to stay married, so that's why we don't work together.
I think that there are a lot of listeners that can totally appreciate that. I often wonder what that would look like if my husband and I owned the same business or the dynamics or what that looks like. And it takes a certain personality that you're a driver or a type A, you're running things. And when there's two of them in the room, that doesn't always work out very well.
Gosh. Yeah. And, it did work for a long time. And then all of a sudden it didn't. And it got really ugly. And I'm so grateful for that time together because we learned so much about each other as a couple. Because I'll tell you this, if you do work with your spouse, like there's nothing that will force you to have to work on your relationship other than this, because like you have to, like you have this business that can't close its doors. So you've got to work on that relationship first and foremost in order to make the business work. Right. So over time, it just became very obvious that wasn't ideal for either of us.
Okay, that's great. So tell us what a typical day looks like for you as an entrepreneur in your current business.
So currently, there are 3 days out of the work week. Typically, that's Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays that I am like full on businesswoman. And from like 9:30 till about 4:30, sometimes even 5:30, I am like in the thick of running my business. I'm pretty organized about what happens during those time blocks and on those 3 particular days. But then on those other 2 days of the week, on Wednesdays and Fridays, I am 100% mommy and I'm totally at home with my kid. I have a 2-year-old daughter. Everything is structured around spending time with her. So I absolutely, usually about like 70% of the time, I'm usually working during her nap time, which is like an hour, but not always. I really give myself time on those days to like just be the domestic goddess and mommy person that I want to be. And so it allows me to sort of fulfill that, which is a challenge, by the way, because I love what I do. This is like the big mission and purpose. Like my business is a mission for me. It is a big movement for me. It's a purpose of how I'm here in this world. So to stop that is a constant challenge, but a good one to have so I can make sure to feed all these other important areas of my life. Then during those 3 days of the work week, typically Tuesdays and Thursdays are set aside for any one-on-one client work that I would have. So any private clients that I'm working with or anyone who has invested in like a 3-hour intensive or anything like that. Tuesday afternoons, I have 2 different masterminds that run during that time. Mondays typically are full-on admin days for me. The afternoon, I'm a little more open with. So usually from like 9:30 to generally about 2 o'clock, it's full-on admin and just kind of getting my week set up and, doing some of those CEO type of activities and strategies that I really need to be working on. And then the afternoon might be like podcast interviews, either for my own podcast or for others. And that's just kind of a general snapshot.
I love it. So I call those theme days, and you just like totally described theme days so that you know that when you're booked Tuesdays and Thursdays with clients, that now you have to book them into the next week. Because if you'd fill up your whole Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday with clients, it would give you no time to plan your week and set yourself up and communicate with your independent contractors or your executive assistant. Like you can't be go all the time.
Well, this has taken a couple iterations and it is constantly evolving too. Like for me, it has a lot to do with just scheduling things according to what is an ideal energy time for me. So I tried a client wants to meet then. Okay, let's meet then. And then client times are like all over the board. And the challenge with that is that when I'm in that type of energy, there are certain things that I'm not going to be ready to do after that or before that. So I'm going to be in that energy. So what it's done for me is it helps me sort of batch the types of work that I do according to what energy I have at that time. So when I'm doing one-on-one client work, I'm super creative. I'm like excitable. I'm so in it. And the last thing I want to do is sit in my email inbox, clean stuff up. So, so if I can do a good job of putting all those together on the same times, it actually benefits not only myself, but my clients, because there will be days where where at max, I'll have like 4 clients back to back. Sometimes 5, but rarely. At max, it's like 4 clients back to back because every single one of them gets the residual energy that I've just had from that other call. So it works to my benefit and then frees me up for all of those other things at the different times.
Yes, I think that batching is such a great strategy for productivity. And I have never heard anybody talk about batching for energy or energy levels or types of energy. So this is a great tip for our listeners, is that once you're in that energy zone that, like you said, now the other listeners get the, what'd you call it, residual. So it's a momentum throughout your day instead of stopping and then getting more like admin and email and then having to get that energy back for your next call. You just keep in your flow for the day.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, awesome. So now, Katie, I know that you wear a lot of hats. Can you tell us a few of the hats that you wear and talk to us a little bit about how you manage all of the different hats you wear in your day-to-day or your week-to-week?
Oh, girl. Okay. So I am sure I'm speaking most every single one of your listeners' language right now because, man, woman, young, old, it doesn't really matter. Like we all have other things besides business that we're working on. So I am obviously a business owner. I'm a mom. I am a wife. I am a daughter. I am a sister. I'm an aunt. I am a friend. I am very athletic and like my health and fitness are very important to me. I'm a constant learner, meaning like I really love learning new things. I'm an explorer. So I love, as far as where I spend my time, like I love getting out into the world and seeing the world in different ways and traveling or just being on road trips. So all of that means that I've got to figure out, and I have to be creative about figuring out how I make sure all of those things that I love doing, all those hats that I wear that I consider really important for me, for my holistic well-being, all get their time and all get the proper amount of really like dedicated attention. I'm not a big believer in multitasking. I actually really suck at it. Like,
so does everybody that's listening, whether they admit it or not.
Oh, good. Because I think, the new age kind of wisdom is exactly that. Like put your energy in a focused area one at a time and then kind of move on. And that way you're fully present. But that was not the case like 5 years ago, even. This whole idea of multitasking was so the thing. But like I suck at being a mom and being on my computer at the same time. I hate it. I never feel like I'm really being present with my daughter, which, I'm not. And that's, by the way, this is okay to do every once in a while. Like I don't have like very stringent, hardcore judgments on myself for this by any means. But like, I don't know. I just never feel like I do a good job if I split my energy. So getting back to your question of how I make that all work, my geek answer is that I schedule the hell out of my life. Like I really, what I do actually, no surprise, I have kind of a process for this. At any given moment, although there is a point where I started doing this, there's a moment when I did start doing this where I really itemized, like, what are the things in my life? What are my values? Like, what do I want to make sure I'm giving my attention to? So mommy time with my kid, time with my husband, time with my family, time with my friends. It's all time. Like all of these things that are important to me are all time. So a natural thought is like, great. Well, where does my time really get organized and exist? On my calendar. So what that meant for me in practical terms was that I immediately just put it in the calendar that every single Saturday, my husband and I have a date night. Like it's there. It's a recurring event. There are times that we don't do it, but for the most part, because it's there, we do it. Even if we're like, get in the car and we're like, okay, what do you want to do?
Just figure it out right then when you're supposed to be on date night. Yes.
Yeah, but who cares? It's the point of like, we've dedicated our time right now to each other and being present. And same thing with my daughter. Obviously, those Wednesdays and Fridays, that is dedicated time to my daughter. And I am constantly having to challenge myself to be just like, okay, are we going to have like an adventure? Are we just going to stay home? Are we going to sort of do the dailies of going and getting groceries? And, what kind of, are we doing art projects today? So it allows me that space to just be with her and not have any other pressure other than just being with her. Same with family time. My family lives out in Arizona, the majority of them. And so like, we're pretty cognizant about how often are we there? How often are they out here? Like, when are we going to see them? Who's got a birthday coming up? When is my brother who lives in Amsterdam? When is he coming into Arizona? And how can we get out there to see him? So we're really on top of that. Same thing with time with friends. Like I don't have a specific kind of accountability checkoff system for this, but generally once or twice a month, I make sure like I'm going out with a girlfriend for some drinks and just, it's nothing other than just having some girlfriend time, you know? And same thing with weekends. That's really where a lot of like the exploring and be outside and all that stuff that gets done on the weekends. Cause I don't have formal working times on the weekends. You know, the working out, the ever so old working out question is like, it's in my calendar to do it. And if I'm not going to do it at that time, I move out around the schedule so I know when I'm going to do it. So I believe my calendar is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to my values and how I'm living out all my values.
You know, I am a big scheduler as well, and I schedule everything. My husband laughs when he sees my schedule, or if somebody were to look over my shoulder and see it, it would stress them out. But for me, what it does is it's a visual presence. Like I can see it. I planned it. I know exactly where I'm supposed to be at certain time. And I know where my focus and energy is supposed to be. And for me, I feel a sense of security and like peace knowing that, okay, right now I'm supposed to be focusing on this project at work. And right now this is like specifically like family time. I literally have the same things in my schedule. And I even kind of color code them. So this is really geeking out. But like yellow on my calendar is personal. I, like you, I wear many hats, just like every one of our listeners. But what I loved about you, Katie, was that you were very clear that there was a lot of parts that some people might call personality traits, but you called them hats. So you're an adventurer, you're an explorer, and that you know that if you don't make the time and schedule that on your calendar and be purposeful with that, that you're not going to be able to have that as much in your life. And then my guess is you would feel out of balance and not as happy.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And Katie, you said you have a low tolerance for unhappy. So we don't want that.
Yeah, it does not take me very long to be like, oh yeah, I didn't like that. Let's try that. Let's redo all that stuff. I don't like this.
Yeah. And so, okay, so since we are totally geeking out about this, have you noticed that as seasons in your life change or maybe priorities in your business change, that your schedule changes or the balance that you put in one area versus the other?
Totally. My calendar, my schedule, like it's a living, breathing thing. It's always evolving. And absolutely. So I have a daughter who's 2 years old. And this is just one example, like when I had her, I was fully committed to like getting back in shape. I want to get health and fitness back. I really want it. That was really important to me. And so like I put it in my calendar when to do that. That was totally lined up with her nap time, her like morning nap time. Well, fast forward 2 years, she doesn't nap the same way. So like just that one thing in and of itself sort of has had to move and has had to change a couple ways over the course of this time. So that has definitely changed now. And I suspect that it will change again at a different point.
Yes, like when she doesn't take naps at all. My son's 7, he's no nap time. Yeah.
You know, I interviewed Mariah C. Crest-Comer, who I know that you're good friends with. You've done some work with. She's probably been on the show.
Yeah.
She made this great comment about how, just for working out, for example, to have, I think she called it a default workout. And so the huge thing that I'm not saying is that my schedule only goes according to plan like 80% of the time, which is, you know, like I have an 80-20 rule with the calendar. I love the planning, but like never, like I don't think I've ever had a week where everything goes exactly according to plan. There's always something moving and changing. But in as much as like that, the workout example, it's like, oh, okay, she didn't sleep. Okay, well, I guess we're getting in the stroller and we're going to do a walk or a run instead. And that's going to be the way that it is. So it's just always having that movement. And then an interesting and very recent example is that I love talking about my 3-day work week because it's something I'm really proud of. It's a huge accomplishment for me and did not happen right away. But at the end of last year, at the end of 2017, I was sort of feeling like, I kind of want a little bit more work time. Maybe I can work a little differently. I'm going to go to 4 days a week. I'm going to go to 4 days a week, but shorter days. So we'll go Monday through Thursday, maybe 9:30 to like 2, right? Mm-hmm. It took me all of a week and a half to realize I did not like that schedule. I had gotten so used to working in these giant chunks and that works for me. I'm exhausted at the end, but like it works really well for me. And so I was like, okay, we're going to change back up. And immediately I was like, okay, you know, within the latter half of January, I was able to change everything back up so that those 3 days a week were sort of back intact. So yeah, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. I'm constantly experimenting. I give myself a lot of grace. I have no judgments when it comes to my calendar because I know that I'm constantly trying to make it work best for me.
Right. Yes. And so you said so many great things, but one of the things I want to just highlight for anyone who is listening is that you said that your schedule works about 80% of the time, that every week does not look as it had been planned. But there's so much value in planning because 80% of the time it's going as you planned proactively, exactly the way you want it. Whereas if there's no planning at all, you're just reacting to your day or your week, or that there's no purposeful action really being taken place. And so I actually was just talking to somebody about this last week, is that I'm going to screenshot my week after I plan it, which looks beautiful. like start me Monday morning and it looks beautiful. So like example, like last week, I had the entire week scheduled out. It was amazing. I had some deadlines to hit. I had projects. I had all this really cool stuff going on. I come in Monday morning to the office and my computer did not work. Like it had to restart like 10 times. I'm like looking at my schedule like it's an avalanche, like it's a train wreck happening. Like, cause I had all the morning scheduled out what I was supposed to be working on so that I could be off by a certain time and yada, yada. I'm literally calling my husband, tears in my eyes. I'm like, I can't. I have a schedule and I'm trying to keep up with it. It's Monday morning and I'm already like, my whole week is gone. And he's like, okay, this is like totally transparent. He's like, okay, what do you need me to do? I'm like, bring me a computer. And so he brought me lunch and my laptop to my office because I have an office outside of my home. And I was able to triage. So then you look at your day, you see how much time you have left, you work in priority order, and I got done what mattered most. And then I rescheduled the things that were not highest priority later in the week. And I was able to save the day. But in that moment, what I thought was, it's really funny if you look back at my week, the whole morning is just white space. Literally, I guess I could put in there like computer crashed, but I mean, I didn't get anything done. And so then take a snapshot of my week on Friday night of what the schedule actually ended up looking like. And it's never the same. But because I'm starting with a plan, I'm so much better off and so much more productive and purposeful because I started with a lot of block scheduling, a lot of laying out what was important, both personally and professionally.
Yep, totally true. A very wise woman once told me, her name is Amber de la Garza, that creating that proactive plan is much like your train tracks. And then if you get off gear, off course, like life is going to happen, at least you know where the train tracks are so you can get right back on course. So I'm sure you've probably used that analogy 100 times on this podcast, but figured that you should know that wisdom sticks even in those geekiest of us who love productivity.
Yes. So yeah, the train tracks, because you're going to fall off, but it's when the day kind of goes haywire or you have a client that reaches out to you or something comes up inevitably. It's that if we don't know where to go back to, then the day just kind of falls to the wayside. And so I love just knowing where to get back to and to reprioritize or replan the rest of your day to make it most productive. Katie, I do want to talk about this. There's a lot of people that believe that having such a schedule that you and I talk about is restrictive, or it doesn't sound like fun, or it's too stressful for them. I just want to chat with you, and we can both kind of chat about that, about how we actually find freedom in our schedule and peace with that, like knowing that when you have those 2 days off, you didn't have other priorities in business. You were able to schedule your priorities around that so that when you're with Sedona, you're with Sedona. And when you're at work, you're like fully focused on work. And you know that Sedona's having a great time in preschool. That's the kind of freedom that I think that everyone could experience with a schedule versus feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to be somewhere. I have to do something.
Yeah. Two things. Number one is that I am very clear that not everyone works very well in the kind of structure that you and I work in. My husband, for example, this is such a great example of two different personalities. I was trying to get him to commit to listen, I just need you. Is it cool that you can take Sedona to daycare in the morning every Tuesdays and Thursdays? That would be incredibly helpful for me because then I can just get right into business, blah, blah, blah. And he agreed. And then it rarely ever happened that way and blah, 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 blah. And instead of it becoming a fight, we finally got to the conclusion that he just doesn't work that way. He's not the guy who works his calendar like I do. He doesn't have okay, every Friday I'm doing this and every Tuesday I'm doing this. That doesn't work for him. He's an uber creative in that, I shouldn't say uber creative, we're all creatives, but the way that his mind works is just not like that. And I have had clients like that and they take a look at my schedule and they're cross-eyed and they're like, that ain't going to work for me. And so for those of you who that may not be ideal for, it's kind of making your hair stick up on the back of your neck to hearing us, there is something called you can create your own type of organization and scheduling that does work for you. One example of this is I had a client who, for her, it worked just to have one main priority every single day. And it didn't matter when she got it done. She just needed to get it done. That was it. And that's about how organized and proactive that she could get. And it worked really well for her. And that was great. Kind of going back to this, and really with the second point is that I have found through multiple experiences in my life, not just a business experience, but like a health and fitness experience, all sorts of different types of experiences in my life, that I have found that true freedom for me is found when I know my boundaries and when it has a template, because otherwise I'm just sort of all over the place. And for me, that feels like chaos. That doesn't work for me. So the irony is that I consider myself a total free spirit and I'm like uber like dorky about my schedule, right?
Yes. I love that because people need to hear that. Like you can't have both.
No, and what I think that it does, what I know that it does for me, and if you listening can identify with this and maybe find some solace in this, I'm very grateful for that, is that it completely allows me to let go of anything other than what I am there to do and what I have said is important for me to do in that moment, rather than trying to do it all. So, for example, if I were to time block a particular project, like let's say, for example, this is a perfect example. Right now, I have a time block for later this week. There's like a 2-hour time block for me to work on my signature course. If I have that on my schedule, the benefit of that is I don't worry about the signature course. I don't constantly have that in my thoughts. I'm not constantly like, oh my God, I got to get to it. I don't feel the stress of it because I already know that I've dedicated that time to it and that's when I'm going to work on it. And the same is true for my spending time with my daughter. Like I don't feel guilty. I refuse to feel guilt because I don't feel guilty when she's in school because A, she loves it and she's such a social kid. She just loves it there. And B, I'm like, great. I know this time when she's in school is when I get to light up in my business. And that's awesome and purposeful and fills me. And because I do that, when she's here with me, I get to let all of that stuff go and I get to be 100% mommy. That to me is freedom because I can be the best version of me in all of those areas of my life that I consider important. And that's how it works best for me. I don't think that works best for everyone, but for me, that seems to work really well.
Yes, Katie, I couldn't agree with you more. But I can also say that anyone listening, like we didn't start out this way. We didn't start out with these like crazy block schedules with everything blocked out, or I can speak for myself. It was an evolution, and it was an evolution starting from like the client that you said, she has one priority. And then perhaps, as she evolves, maybe next time it'll be one priority and she knows exactly what time she's doing it from, like 10 to 12. And then maybe she'll add something else, like some boundaries of when she starts her day and ends her day. It's about stacking on top of it. And once you get more and more comfortable and clearer about what you want or you desire so that you can reach your goals quicker and faster, I think that it just evolves with us. So, where I'm at today, when I do this podcast a year from now, I bet my systems and processes that are going to be different. It's going to look different.
Oh, girl, do not get me started on what the heck my podcast process looked like when I first started. It's disgusting how much time I was wasting.
Right, exactly. And so for me, like I wanted my processes all done before I'd even start my podcast. And so that's complete opposite, right? There's some people that are quick to take action and they'll figure it out afterwards. And there's others that need like the process and the planning and then they'll take action. And for me, like I hate chaos in my life. I don't like things falling through the cracks. And this is kind of ironic because I forgot to send Katie her link to actually do this interview today, just being totally transparent. And Katie's like, well, just like a fellow girl that loves processes, I thought you'd want to know, like I never got my link. I'm like, yes, okay, broken process, it'll be fixed. But my point to all of that is that it's a learning, right? We're always learning, we're always evolving and trying to get better at whatever it is we're doing. And I think that we can say that's true for our schedules. And it's true for understanding even the hats that we wear and knowing that each of the hats we wear requires specific time on our schedules so that we are showing up our best selves. I think I shared in a previous episode recently, when I first started my business, I worked 2 days a week. And as my business grew, my son was in preschool, then I moved him to 3 days of preschool. And then after about a year, I went to like 5 days. And that was my evolution of restructuring boundaries within the season of my life and with understanding where I wanted to put my focus and energy at that time. And that it all works. Katie, you're running a phenomenal business in 3 days a week. Like that is something that anybody that's listening should understand, that that is an amazing accomplishment in itself and proof that your scheduling works, girl.
Yeah, well, it's also more than that. Like, I think that too, when you really take on ownership of your calendar, of your schedule, of your time, really is what it is. When you take ownership of that, then you get to proactively plan what that looks like. So my husband and I, we want to have more kids. And there are very real strategies I'm implementing in my business, very real things I'm doing in my business so that I can have a little bit more of a flexible schedule. Like, and I could still run a massive business. Like, I am not in the belief system that I need to slow things down in order to be a mommy. I really believe that I can have both worlds and have them be very fulfilling at the same time. So the point is that there are very real things I'm working on as far as business strategy, because I know that I want my schedule to change a little later on.
Right. Yeah. So looking into the future, preparing now for the future. So does this mean, Katie, that you're literally scheduling like what month you get pregnant so that it aligns with like conferences you're going to and launches you're having in your business? Are we that scheduled, or are we going to let that just kind of be what it is?
There will be a point, like, we're not like super serious about actually, quote unquote, trying to have kids right now. Like, it's sort of like tentatively like, okay, maybe towards the latter part of the year, like we'll really get that going. And probably then, like it is a very realistic thing. Like, I'm sorry, but for women, like there's this real thing called, hey, there's a certain time period where I really should not be at a conference, and I should not be 100% available to my community every single moment. Like, there's a very real part to leading up to having a baby, and most definitely those few months after you have a baby. So absolutely, like my husband runs a giant podcasting conference every year in February called PodFest, and we would make sure that it's not around that. There's very real parts about that. So absolutely.
I totally agree. I was just taking a guess on that. But I know that if I were to do this, so my son's 7 now, but if I were to have another child again, like I would definitely be scheduling like how does that look? And I know that sounds really weird, but you just want to, when I say schedule, like, of course, if anything happens, it happens. But if you can, you want to prepare, because like you said, those months when you have a new child, like you want to be able to clear the slate and be just solely present with your new baby. And you can't do that if you're responsible for running a huge podcast conference or a huge Biz Chicks conference. I know you do something in December. And so those are important deadlines, and I have them in my business as well. So definitely worth thinking about. Alrighty. Well, Katie, this has been a great conversation about all the hats you wear, about scheduling your values, about finding freedom within our schedule, which I just love. And I think that's going to really resonate with a lot of our listeners. So as we close out today, can you share with our listeners how they can reach out to you or find you or work with you, any of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So my home is at bizwomenrock.com, and I actually have an awesome private Facebook community filled with over 5,000 other really awesome, ambitious women entrepreneurs. And so if you want to be a part of that, if this really clicked with you, for all you ladies out there, you can go join that for free at bizwomenrock.com/group. And that group is really one of the places where I am most active and most available for women to connect with.
Excellent. And I'm also one of the members of this community, and the vast resources and knowledge and just the way that you show up, Katie, so authentically and real is so inspiring. So any of you ladies, and I know this has been an amazing episode for you men too, and I know that you totally took value, but you ladies that are out there looking to be a part of a community, I think this is one that I would highly, highly recommend. So Katie, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your experiences, your knowledge, and just showing us how we can really have it all.
Thank you so much, Amber. I really appreciate it.
Well, wasn't that an excellent interview with Katie? I just love her energy. I first met her at Podcast Movement at a conference, and it was really funny because I actually had met several other women that I really, really connected with over the first day and a half or so. And then I met Katie, and I found out that all these women were a part of her community. And I thought, oh my gosh, any woman that can attract so many people that are so like-minded, go-getters, just genuine people, I had to know her. So since then, Katie and I have built a great little long-distance friendship, as I'm in Las Vegas and she's in Florida. But it was certainly my pleasure to have her on the show today. And likewise, she's had me in her community teaching. I think that there was so many great nuggets to take from Katie. And I think the overarching message that I really want you to walk away from is that schedules do not need to be a negative. That in fact, when you flip the script and change your mindset and your conversation and look at schedules as a freedom, as an opportunity to be present in everything that you do, then I think you might fall in love with schedules as Katie and I are. I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk, but I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on what you learned, what will you take action on today? Like right now. Because I shared with you about the forgetting curve. And the forgetting curve says that you forget any new information, 50% of it within the first hour and 70% within the first 24 hours. And I don't want you to forget about how you feel and what you learned about how schedules can really, really help you in your business and your life and just be a lot happier because you're a lot more present in all the areas of your life. So go take some action. What action are you willing to take based on what you learned today? Even if it's just a baby step, even if it's something so small, that's a step that compounded over time will get you the results that you're looking for. So take a moment and identify what that is for you today. To share your actionables and receive support, guidance, and motivation from entrepreneurs just like you, join us on the inside of our private Facebook group. And you can do that by going to productivitycommunity.com. It's in there that I share exclusive, only private community information, such as Facebook Lives, where I teach and I go deeper on each of these topics. I start a lot of conversation around each of the weekly episodes so that we can really, really take it home and implement what you learned in the episodes. So if you're not already a member, I would love for you to join me by going to productivitycommunity.com. Leave me your name and email address, and I will send you a private invitation. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with another entrepreneur who you feel would find it valuable. The growth of this podcast and the message that it can share with other entrepreneurs is really up to you. It's up to you to share this message because I don't want you to keep this a secret. If you have found value and inspiration and that it has helped you grow your business, increase your profits, reduce your stress, share that with someone that you care about. And you can do that with any of the podcast apps. There's generally a little button that you can tap on and hit share. You can share a direct link. It can email them. It can text message them. Just get the word out and share an episode that you think would be of value to them. So that's my straight talk for you today. And until next time, have a productive week.